Swinging in the Persian Gulf. This week began with the defense minister of Saudi Arabia making noises about making a deal with Iraq to avoid war. It ends on a very different note. Yesterday, the American Secretary of Defense talked about committing an enormous number of additional troops to the Gulf. And now we learn the Secretary of State is going off to the Gulf again. ABC's John McWethy on the point he is trying to make.
Secretary Baker was in Saudi Arabia just 7 weeks ago, but he is planning to go again to deliver a new, tougher message on the prospects for war. U.S. sources say the President and Secretary of State now believe they need to emphasize that the U.S. and its allies are deadly serious about fighting if Iraqi troops are not withdrawn from Kuwait. Since Saddam Hussein has not been convinced so far, Baker's trip, plus the sending of 100,000 more American troops, are designed to step up the pressure and to prepare for a fight if the pressure doesn't work. A tougher American stance is sure to be welcomed by some in the Gulf.
While we're all talking, Saddam Hussein is destroying Kuwait and murdering its people and raping its people.
But some Democrats in Congress were today expressing the fear that the administration might push too hard.
Mr. Speaker, as we move to adjournment, the President appears to be seeding war clouds in the Persian Gulf.
The Bush administration is so sensitive to the impact that its new message could have here at home that very little of the tougher language is expected to surface until after the elections 10 days from now. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
For the 210,000 American troops in Saudi Arabia, maintaining a fighting edge has become a serious problem. Grumbling has always been an inevitable part of military life, but as ABC's Bill Redeker tells us, morale is a serious issue sooner than expected.
Come on in close, school circle.
It was their first day off since they came to the desert nearly 3 months ago, and the Marines unwound by playing in the sand. Because opportunities for R&R are so limited in Saudi Arabia, and the isolation is so complete, military commanders know they have a morale problem.
Morale is very critical because over here with a lot of questions unanswered for the soldiers, if morale's not up, things could deteriorate.
Many of the men are unhappy because they are not sure what they are doing here.
We all just got a speech saying that we accomplished our mission and that the mission isn't over, but, you know, what's the mission?
We don't know anything. We get very little news out here.
Another issue that affects morale, no one knows how long they will be here.
Not knowing when the war is going to take place, if it takes place, or when rotation's coming up. We've heard several different rumors about both things.
Other soldiers in other wars have had to cope with lousy conditions and uncertain missions. The question is whether these all-volunteer soldiers are prepared to cope, having bought a recruiting pitch emphasizing career advancement, not combat.
Some of the most successful people in the white-collar world start off green.
That's the promise, but this is the reality. And how do soldiers feel about promises that go unfulfilled? Why did you join?
Basically, just to get money for college. That's it. Not to go to war.
Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be in Saudi Arabia.
And that's the real problem. Professional soldiers though they are, the thought of fighting in Saudi Arabia never really occurred to them. Bill Redeker, ABC News, Saudi Arabia.
In other news overseas today, the panel appointed by the Israeli government to investigate the shooting of 17 Palestinians in Jerusalem earlier this month has now finished its work. The final report, which was made public today, does not answer all the questions that have been raised. Here's ABC's Dean Reynolds.
Prime Minister Shamir personally selected the commission members, and today they handed him their report. Its major finding was just what the Israeli government has been saying, that Palestinians incited by Muslim clerics were to blame for the October 8th riots. The report defended the Israeli policemen, saying that faced with Palestinian stone throwers, they had reason to fear for their lives and those of Jewish worshippers at the adjacent Western Wall. That justified the use of live ammunition, but there were occasions, the report said, when the firing was excessive. 17 Palestinians were killed, while 19 policemen and 9 Jewish civilians were slightly injured. The police were also criticized for being unprepared to control a large crowd of hostile Palestinians, even though they had ample warning.
We have nothing to hide. We are putting out all the information. Everybody in the world can see it.
The Israelis are clearly hoping this report will take some of the international pressure off of them. Copies are being provided to the United States and the United Nations. But the foreign audience will find no comment in the report on the clearly audible use of automatic weapons fire in violation of standing orders, and no substantiation of the government charge that the Palestinians, in addition to throwing stones at police, were intentionally targeting Jewish worshippers nearby. Israel says it will continue to resist any outside investigations of the bloodshed. The government says this chapter is closed. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Jerusalem.